Redditors who have mistakenly walked in on people doing it. What's your story? My little sister's 16th birthday. I was definitely too old to enjoy myself. We had an olive grove down the back of our house. Later on in the night, I walked down there into a crowd that had formed. The group was standing around watching two kids do it for the first time. It still haunts my dreams. Edit spelling. I walked into my roommate and his girlfriend in college. I think one of my classes was canceled because it was the week before finals. As I opened the door, they both yelled, "Dan, no!" And I just saw my roommate's butt trying to shield himself and his girlfriend. I let out an insanely over-the-top laugh, then left. About 5 minutes later, he walked into our friend's dorm that I went to hang out in, and he said, "We only had to make it one more week without this happening." Good times. It was my 16th birthday, and my mother had made cake. So I decided to call my brother to come downstairs. He didn't respond, thus I ran upstairs to get him. Without knocking, I slammed the door open. I was a bit too excited, and I found his girlfriend with her head between his legs. My brother couldn't stop laughing, and his girlfriend's face was completely red from shame. This is how I met my sister-in-law. So it's Halloween and I'm 18 or 19 partying with my friends. A few friends were visiting from a different city and had a hotel room that we all ended up going back to. It was 4 girls and one of the girls' boyfriend. I'd already thrown up outside of the hotel in the bushes, but I knew I'd have to do it again. We get all settled and some of the girls are playing a card game whilst I had the spins. I remember jumping up and running to the bathroom. I opened the door and my friend's roommate was having sex with her boyfriend in the shower. I shut the door fast and say sorry, but I still had to vomit, so I was like, "Guys, get out." They told me to come back in. Me being drunk thought, okay, they're going to leave. Nope. They just closed the shower curtain. So I listened to them having sex while they got it on to the sounds of my puke. Not my story, but a friend's. He and his girlfriend were doing the deed, and for whatever reason, they'd ended up in his parents' room. Well, they heard people coming up the stairs, so they hurriedly grabbed all their clothes and hid in the closet. His parents come in and get it on themselves. My buddy and his girlfriend had to sit naked in the closet trying to be as quiet as possible, listening to his parents have you-know-what. Freshman year of college, everyone on our floor was friendly and we had an open-door policy, so we would often walk into each other's rooms to do things like ask if people wanted to go to the dining hall together or get a group together to play soccer. So one day, one of my friends was under the weather with a cold. I thought on my way out the door to the dining hall I'd stop in his room and ask if he wanted me to bring back some chicken soup. Little did I know his girlfriend had driven 4 hours to come surprise him because he was sick. I barge into his room, as I always did, and the first thing I see is this girl on top of him topless. So I did the only sensible thing. I asked if she wanted chicken soup too. 4 years later, we're all still friends. Not as close as we were freshman year, but that's what happens over time. I've never walked in on anyone, but I've been walked in on by 2 people at a party who thought they were about to do it in the same room me and my partner were in. They opened the door and one of them said, "God, this effing house, I swear," and then left. Not me, but my friend. They were making cookies in our dorm and he remembered he has a half-gallon of milk in his room. Milk goes well with cookies, so he goes to get it. Without thinking, he opens the door to his room, and about the halfway point between the door and his mini-fridge, he just stops. He looks over and sees his roommate on top of a girl very obviously doing it. He looks at them in the fridge, which was 3 feet away, and says, "Just getting the milk." He walks over, grabs the milk out of the fridge, and leaves. 2 people doing it walked in on me while I was sleeping. I was at a cottage and I was asleep on the bunk bed. A couple of people came in and started doing it on the bottom bunk, not realizing I was on top. Had been sleeping on a friend's couch after a party. I was very, very, very drunk and had to pee in the middle of the night, and the nearest bathroom was through the room next to me. So I stumbled in on 2 people I didn't know very well, but instead of doing the normal person thing of just leaving, I gave the guy a big old grin and finger guns and walked backwards out. Went back to sleep, woke up 30-ish minutes later, completely forgetting this happened, realized, hey, I need to go pee, walked in the same room again, completely shocked, so I smiled again and gave him a thumbs up and shuffled backwards out. Went to the other bathroom, fell asleep, and forgot again. Found out about this story the next morning by the guy who thankfully thought the situation was funny. Edit. I pieced the story back together from what he said. He more jogged my memory, as all I could remember was really having to pee. TLDR, I'm a very supportive and forgetful drunk. I was young and naive, and my older brother was quietly doing it with his girlfriend at our parents' house. I went to call them for dinner and opened the door. Neither of our rooms had locks. Thankfully, they were under the covers and I immediately left, but my brother followed and slapped me round the head. I showed up at a house party super late. I think I had a date or something that went horribly, so thought, F it, I'll go get drunk. We always partied in my friend's basement because it was just a good setup. I failed to notice that A, there weren't any cars in the driveway or on the street, B, there weren't any shoes or boots upstairs. I go skipping down the stairs with my case of crispy boys and burst into the basement when I hear a small shriek and see two people dive onto the couch. She pops her head up and goes, "Oh, hey, MJV22. Party ended early tonight." Clearly naked, I heard my friend giggling from the shelter of the couch and just slowly back out of the room. Walked in on my female flatmate having a two-guy three-way, and not like the three-ways you see in porn where one at the mouth, the other is behind. It was like a sandwich. There was a dude on his back, my flatmate lying on top of him, and then the last guy was kinda lurched over the whole affair with his feet on the ground but his torso on her back. We never discussed it, but it was one of the weirdest things I've ever seen happen and actually put me off starting a relationship with her when the opportunity came up. I was the person being walked in on, but it was really funny. I was in one of my fraternity common rooms. I deserved to be walked in on, but that's beside the point. We had been drinking, and one thing led to another, and we were doing the dirty. Well, the door had a combo lock on it, and the only people who had access were my roommates. Well, my roommate decided 2 a.m. was the appropriate time to get his guitar and practice on the patio. So he enters the room with this goofy look on his face until he realized what was happening. So he nonchalantly grabs his guitar and begins to leave. But before he goes, he gave us a 20-second Spanish serenade on the guitar. My words do not give that moment justice in just how entertaining and funny it was. I work security on my campus. There are a few times walking in on couples making out or something, but one time I walked into the art building to close it up. I normally didn't check the basement because there wasn't ever really anyone down there. It's the play costume area. This night there was a play earlier, so I decided to check it. I walked through and there was this one door closed, but it had a small glass window. I saw one girl with her legs spread and another girl with her face in between them eating her out pretty voraciously. I knocked on the door and kinda ran and cleared the rest of the building, then went and checked to make sure they had left. I go to a small school, so I knew who the girls were. The eater is married now to a guy. I never really told anybody about it. We were 12 and walking in a group of 5 on the beach under the moonlight. One of us sees what we think is a seal lying very quietly on the sand, waiting until our group passed by. It was not a seal. I threw a house party and put a sign on my bedroom saying off limits. A friend told me he heard someone in my room, so I entered and saw the prom queen riding a buddy of mine. I quickly exited the room. Later that night, he came up to me and said, "I'm sorry about doing it in your bed, but at least you got to see Alexa naked. We cool?" And we shook hands and never spoke of it again. I was walking through the Hyde Park, Sydney. They were banging out in the open. I kept walking. I was a pizza delivery boy fresh out of high school, and the place I worked for had a 25-minute delivery guarantee happening at the time. Between placing the order and me arriving to their house, I'd arrived within 10 minutes as the address was close by, they decided that it'd be a good time to get down to business. I arrived, walked up to their open front door, and knocked. In full view of the front door, they were going at it like rabbits. The woman, hearing me knock, hastily covered herself, exclaiming, "OMG, OMG!" while the man just casually walked to the door completely naked and erect with his cash. He even stood there waiting while I counted out his change. It was probably the most awkward thing I've ever encountered. Edit spelling and grammar. I had a hotel room booked on a trip to Queensland, Australia, and they gave me the key to a room that was apparently already inhabited. Walked into a lovely couple enjoying some doggy-style action. Immediately closed the door, they hadn't heard me thankfully, and went back to explain the mistake to front desk. They were mortified and moved me to a penthouse room with an amazing view of the waterfront along with some free chocolates and dinner. Was at a party. Door to the living room area was closed for some reason. Weird. Open door? Half of my friends at the party are engaged in an orgy. Closed door. Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.